And Jeff, come up here, please. You got a microphone? All righty. Come here, we pick one of these. Okay. Why don't you introduce your fellow panelists here? Okay. Microphone, please.
One, two. Okay.
Gentlemen, I'll leave it to you, Jeff.
Thank you. So, welcome to the panel. We're going to talk about the state of the Lightning Network. And I'm Jeff from Fulmo. We are a Berlin-based Lightning research and development startup. You might know us from the Lightning Hack Days, the Lightning Conference in Berlin a couple of years ago, and also from projects like the Raspberry Blitz. And with me are John Beharry. He's lately known for doing a lot of hackathons, Bold Fun, and basically running like a, I mean, you can talk about it in a second yourself. Roy from Breeze, basically a kick-ass mobile Lightning wallet, and he's been doing a lot of research on, I would say, like in generally speaking, Lightning optimization and how to improve everything. And on my right, it's Alexandre, who's, I think you could best be described as a Lightning researcher. He's been doing a lot of sort of ecosystem mapping and is, yeah. So,
I'm the head of business development at Bolt Observer.
Yeah, so we just wanted to share a couple of thoughts on like where we are, where we stand right now with the Lightning Network. It's ever since we kind of went into Reckless, that was early 2018, and at some point it was dropped, so I'm not sure if it's, or maybe we went back to Reckless this year, especially in the last couple of weeks. So I think we have a good mixture of people. If you maybe just briefly introduce yourself again, so people know like from what perspective you're coming from, and on what your main focus is, and what you've kind of been working on over the years, and then we're going to take it from there and talk about some more particular things.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. I'm Roy Sheinfeld. I'm the CEO of Breeze. I've been doing Lightning stuff since 2018. And the goal of Breeze is to help bring Bitcoin to the masses, and we think Lightning Network, that's the key of bringing Bitcoin to the masses by helping Bitcoin do this transformation from a store of value to a medium of exchange. And yeah, we can talk about everything Lightning related for sure.
Hey, I'm John. So I've been working on Lightning stuff since 2007 or 8. No, I'm working on this project, Bold Fun. We're trying to bring some fun, exciting kind of energy into Bitcoin development and stuff like that. I also work as part of the Peak Shift team. We do design research and design consulting for Bitcoin companies. And yeah, I really like payments and privacy research, and I did a bunch of stuff in that too. So yeah.
I'm Alexandre. I'm the head of business development at Bolt Observer, and we basically provide monitoring and management solutions for Lightning nodes. And what we want to do is to get rid of the complexity related to the management of a node. And prior to this, I worked as a researcher at Fulgur Ventures. So that was last year before joining Bolt Observer.
So, thank you. Starting off with you, Johns, we just so looking back maybe 1 year and then seeing what we've done just in this last year, we were all at Adopting Bitcoin last year, right? Yeah, all of us. So what's like the biggest takeaway for you during the past year? What's most exciting for you, and where do you think, like, where are we standing right now?
A year passed already?
What? A year passed. Oh. I think, yeah, a little bit, a year and a week, maybe.
Damn, all right. So the stuff that are exciting for me, so since the last Adopting Bitcoin, we launched our first events, Shock the Web, Bold Fun Shock the Web. And we started to see like a bunch of new people started to come into the space, which was super exciting. And that was kind of kicked off with some of the dev schools that were also popping off in like Kala in Nigeria, Torogos over here. And there's like a bunch of new educational efforts. And I think we're also at the point where developers who are coming in, or even designers, they can kind of like pick up a few tools and just get started building stuff like straight away. So that for me was one of the biggest changes in the field, where kind of like the accessibility to come into the field and make something, it's a lot more, well, yeah, it's more accessible now. It's like a lot easier to get started for people to try things. So that's kind of like the area where I've been focusing on most.
So is there a lot of interest, like from new developers, or what's your feeling like? Are you making it easier for new developers to get into the field, right?
Well, I think all of you guys are making it easy, right? You know, all the different tools, LN-Bits, the Galoy stack, Lightning Address, all these different pieces of tools allow someone who wants to not do just protocol development, because, you know, that's kind of where people were looking at before. Like, what opportunities are there for me in Bitcoin to make something? It's like, oh, well, you need to be a protocol developer, learn Rust, do this, right? Or an implementation developer. Now people could like live on the application layer, right? And like a web developer could come in and just like hook up a few APIs, like Galoy, like LN-Bits, like BTC Pay, and they could start making some use case on top of it. So, yeah.
So you're saying it's gotten easier to get started with the development, and since basically kind of building on stuff that Roy and people like you, if you will, are doing, like, because you're one layer lower, you're more like building on the technical layer. And
yeah, I'll add that the title of the panel is the state of Lightning. Maybe we'll give a bigger context, and then I can explain why it's easier for developers to build on Lightning. So we started the ecosystem started really kicking off in 2018, and the Lightning back then, I would say there are 3 phases of Lightning. Phase 1, 2018, 2019. Phase 2 is, and in phase one, it was mostly an infrastructure play, meaning the focus was on the Lightning implementation, projects like LND, Core Lightning, CLN back then, a project like Async. That was the foundation of the ecosystem. We saw the inceptions of what I call first generation wallets, projects like Zap, projects like Eclair, and it was a great community project, but still very new. We started making payment on top of Lightning, but it was all just infrastructure play. Then in late 2019 and in 2020, we saw the second phase of Lightning, where our solution became more mature. We saw second generation wallets, like the wallets that we developed at Breeze, wallets like Phoenix, even Moon to some extent has contributed to the ease of use. And also we saw additional projects like Thunder Hub and Ride the Lightning project that enabled you to easily manage your Lightning node. So we saw, on top of the infrastructure layer, we saw additional solutions that allowed you to, even if you're a newbie or you're not that tech savvy, you were able to enter the ecosystem. And now I think we're in the third phase of Lightning, where Lightning is becoming more accessible for developers that don't have a very deep knowledge in Lightning. Infrastructures like BTC Pay, infrastructure like LN-Bits, infrastructure like Galoy, enable newcomers to enter the space without a steep learning curve, which is great. But also, from a product standpoint, we're seeing a lot more vertical solutions. So it's not just about infrastructure, it's not just about node management, projects like Ambrel and Raspberry Blitz. It's also about vertical specific use cases. So we see projects like Fountain, we see projects like Stacker News, we see projects that their main focus is on a very, very specific use case. So I think that we see how Lightning has matured across the several past years.
So what do you think, like, look in 1 or 2 years forward, like where we're headed?
So I think the goal is to bring more adoptions to Lightning and to build on Lightning solutions for specific use cases. So I don't know if things will change in the next 2 years. I'm not a prophet, but I expect that we'll see like a Bolt Fund, for example. There are over 50 projects, 60 projects already listed. If you take a look at these 60 projects, every single project tackles a very specific use case. So I expect in the next 2 years we'll see hundreds of projects that are built on top of the Lightning Network that are targeting a very specific use case. That's my expectation.
So Alexandre, would you kind of mirror that? Would you say there's a lot of specific use cases that are being built out, or do you also see like broader use cases catching on where there's certain applications or projects that are starting to compete with each other for use cases that are already established?
I mean, to build on top of what Roy was saying, I think it's totally right. Yeah. We start seeing vertical, and I like to take also to step back a bit on what we are seeing in the industry. I think we are actually crossing the chasm. What it means is that this is a concept explaining that for a new technology, for a disruptive technology in particular, you have different user profiles. So you have the innovators, then you have the early adopters, then you have the early majority, late majority, and the laggers. And I think that we can reasonably say that we belong to the innovators or the early adopters. But now the question is, what does it take if we want to bring the early majority? Because if we fail, guess what? We'll fall into the chasm. And this is what has been happening with many technologies in the past. So obviously, none of us wants Lightning Network to fall, and none of us wants Lightning Network to fail. But what we need to do is, and I think that this is a fair question, what we need to do is to wonder what kind of use cases do we want to develop, and what kind of population or user do we want to cater so that Lightning Network stays appealing. And I think that Roy is totally right. We start seeing quite a lot of new projects, quite a lot of new use cases. So he mentioned Stacker News, that's one of them. The value for value model as well is pretty interesting, not only for the podcast 2.0, but 2022 has seen quite a lot of growth as well in these industries. And this is something that we've seen actually with drones, because one of the problems we were having is it's a problem for us, and if you like to do a bit of research, but it's definitely not, it's a very strong point for the rest of the users. If you like to know how much volume of transaction is being performed on Lightning Network on a daily or yearly basis, guess what? You can't. There's no way that you can get this number. So we've joined forces with PeakShift and Jones to come up with a searchable data platform, basically, for all the projects and companies related to Lightning. And as of today, we got more than 1,500. So that number only is...
So 1,500 different Lightning projects.
Yeah, and companies, yeah.
Wow. Do you think, is there like a couple of themes, like trends, what they're working on? And like, if you would have to break it down to 2 or 3 major trends, in a sense?
Yeah, what Roy was saying is totally accurate. I mean, we can see it on graphs. I mean, the number of projects on infrastructure and tools was very strong in 2018, 2019. Now, the new use cases we discussed, we start seeing quite a lot of maturity as well in the field of liquidity. So providing liquidity. depending whether you want to put swap into the liquidity category or not, but swaps and liquidity marketplace has become quite a thing also in 2022. And the thing that I'm the most excited about, I guess, is the speed at which we've seen the speed of growth of the communities. I mean, you have to remember that Bitcoin Beach has been around for several years. The first conference at Adopting Bitcoin was last year here in November. And since then, we've seen close to 10 communities all over the world. We've seen Cameroon, we've seen Congo, we've seen Bitcoin Ekazi in South Africa, we've seen the Philippines with Pouch. I mean, it's all over the world. I mean, Bitcoin Jungle, I think you've probably heard about this. And this is, in my opinion, very healthy because it starts bridging the gap, crossing the chasm, because we are touching to a new category of users. Good.
So from what you described, it sounds like it is a lot of new people come in and new projects, but for the most part, it's still about centered around Bitcoin and Lightning. Sort of LSP, for example, is something that is needed within sort of the ecosystem. What would be projects that are reaching out to, as you said, like where we stand to the next kind of audience, to, let's say the early majority or the early adopters, depending on where we stand?
Well, if you look at again the communities, the work done on the communities, I think Bitcoin Beach is a perfect example. It's a wallet, but it's definitely touching to another category. After this, a project like, I don't know, GetMash probably could be one of them as well.
What's that?
Mash could be an interesting one. Now it's hard to say whether they are building for the Bitcoin community or they want to go beyond the Bitcoin community, but it definitely opens many other doors. That's, yeah, new use cases, definitely.
So staying on that same topic, Johns, what's your impression on, you got a lot of projects in the pipeline right now on building on Bolt Fun, 60 at that was what you just said. So what's do you see a general trend there, or is it basically projects that are all over the place?
I think one kind of important trend that we are seeing with projects is that they're solving some local problems or some problems that are unique to the the people, the founders or whatever. So
it's your own scratch kind of problem.
Yes, exactly. And I think these kind of things are super important for Bitcoin adoption, right? Because we can make these general solutions that are perfect for the entire world kind of thing, but really Bitcoin needs to start getting kind of like local, right? Solving individual problems in local communities and stuff. And I really also echo Alex's sentiments about these Bitcoin communities that have been popping up after Bitcoin Beach, because while they may get kind of initially cloned from the Galoy repo and the model that Bitcoin Beach have kind of set up, what starts to happen then is they have to start looking at how they need to apply Bitcoin or how Bitcoin applies to their local environment. So I spoke to one project in Bitcoin Lake, I think it was, and they're doing some stuff around mining and with some of the local litter stuff, I think oil, and instead of having that thrown away, because that's a problem that's very specific to that area, right? Of people throwing away this oil. So they're like, hey, let's use this for these mining machines, and that solves another problem, which is very local, right? And also could potentially generate money for the community, which could be used for education, right? So that's a very local kind of setup, and we start to see these things happen whilst local solutions start getting made. So that's something that really, really excites me with what we're seeing on Bolt Fun as well.
So we heard about that's a lot of projects that are basically building on lower layers, if you will. What's your impression? Is the base layer, the second layer, sturdy enough already to enable all these kind of projects? Or I'm kind of
definitely not.
We had a rough couple of weeks. There were some bugs, and the ecosystem was quick to fix them, but how early are we?
It's just scratching the surface, right? If you've been in the previous presentation, Adam describing all the various potential attacks on Lightning networks, I think like we haven't, like, Lightning network hasn't really been tested enough. So no, I don't think we're there yet in terms of infrastructure. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride for sure. What we saw, the LND attacks, which weren't really attacks. I see it in a positive way. I think that what happened the past 2 weeks was great. It's a wake-up call for Lightning Network, and I think we're just starting to see and to witness people attacking the network, and it is a sign of maturity. It means there's something to attack, which is great. Also, the fact that you're seeing a lot of Lightning liquidity LSP-related project is because there's still liquidity issues in the network. There's not enough liquidity. Payments are still failing. So there's a lot of work to do on the infrastructure level, not to mention the future of tokens, Taro, stable coins on top of Lightning, which is completely unknown.
I mean, the future is usually unknown, so that's not...
Yeah, but we don't know how much it will burden the network and what will be the liquidity requirements on the network as a result of bringing tokens to Lightning.
Right, so
the growth might be not linear, which is a problem for the network. If the network right now accepts new users, like millions of users suddenly, then I don't think the network will sustain it right now.
Right, is that something that, like, if you want to make a prediction, that's going to be sorted out rather soon, or is it basically, what do you say, it's like a steady growth, like we come to new challenges and we pass this challenge, and it's like...
Yeah, I think that's the way Bitcoin works. We always work on the next big problem. So we don't know what will happen. We're trying to make the network as robust as possible. I can tell you that what we're focused on is solving the liquidity issues of the network. There's still a lot of tools missing in terms of the infrastructures, tools like peer swap solutions and tools like splicing that are really need to be included in the Lightning infrastructure in order for liquidity to be manageable.
So now we're talking about, like, really sort of the protocol level, which...
yeah, it's kind of a cycle. You need to reiterate between vertical and infrastructure till you cross the chasm, as Alexandre said.
So do you think, talking about like infrastructure and that still needs to be improved, as always, I guess, is it too early to have all these projects building on it? I mean, from an analytical side, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but...
I don't argue with the market. Like, if people want to build project and work on Lightning, we need that's a good thing, and that drive actually infrastructure work. Like, if no one will use the network, then there won't be any problems in the network. We only are witnessing the problems because people are using the network. So we need users. We need to drive adoptions. We need to bring more users to the network, but we need to maintain and put a lot of resource on the infrastructure in order to make the infrastructure more robust as we crossing this chasm.
So, Johns, like the new people coming in, are they, would you like see their journey? Are they basically developing on the very top and staying there, or is this also sort of an entry or gateway into going deeper into the rabbit hole of development and trying to solve some of these issues ultimately?
Yeah, well, hello? Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of interesting. I've been like, after these quote unquote attacks, I was thinking, what am I doing? You know, is it responsible to be pushing stuff on the application layer, especially in these local communities and stuff like that, where, you know, someone's entire like life savings could be in a, you know, like little hacker wallet or something. So it's like, is this responsible of me to do? But as Roy said, it starts to look like this chicken and egg problem where, the Lightning network needs traffic, it needs capital, it needs liquidity, and stuff like that. But so we need solutions to be made on top of it, right? We need people to use it, and we need to bring in more people to use it so that these issues start getting teethed out. So my strategy has been, let's try to make Bitcoin and Lightning development as sexy, as fun to everyone, so that and make it easy for them to make something very quickly, right? Once we do that, then I'm not trying to show people on, hey, you need to become a Bitcoiner, you need to go completely down the rabbit hole. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go top of the funnel, say, hey, before you go, like maybe it's a developer who's interested in blockchain, right? Because it's all the hype. They don't really care at that point or understand enough to make that decision, right? Of course, we want them to be in Bitcoin, right? But instead, what we start seeing is them going somewhere else, learning the stacks over there, spending several years in there, only to come back to Bitcoin, but have to relearn now. And at that point, they might be burnt, they might feel burnt out, like thing went down, so they're like, oh, screw this whole space, this is all BS. So we're trying to capture them before they make those bad decisions effectively, right? So I'm not in the business of trying to, push Bitcoin onto anyone, right? It's just like, hey, it's very easy for you to just get a taste and do a test, make something very quickly. So hopefully we'll see what happens with that in the next few years if people start going, further down to, maybe working on LDK or any of these larger protocol companies or stuff. I hope so. Right, that's the whole idea. If we get more people into the funnel coming into Bitcoin development or design, then eventually, they will make their way lower down to the stack.
So it's a numbers game, basically.
Yes, exactly. And it's only been a year since I've been looking at this and trying to drive that. But yeah, we'll see.
So maybe another related question regarding numbers, and there's all these projects. Some are just starting out as hackathon projects. Others grown to larger companies. What's sort of the funding reality, the money reality right now? Like, is it easy for Bitcoin or specifically Lightning project to get funding, or is it still kind of a hassle?
Well, okay. To be very honest, we haven't looked at this yet. Okay, this is not on our to-do list, but we start having some different information on the different user profile, I would say, of the different VCs. There are VCs who have been around with a very strong investment thesis since the beginning. They have been investing in Bitcoin for years. I mean, you can talk about, I don't know, Trammell Venture, Filger Ventures, Concentric, HiveMind. These guys, they know what they are talking about and they want to invest in Bitcoin. Now, this is also one of the reasons why we are building Lightning Landscape, is because we want more visibility, we want more money. And when there is a VC or limited partners who say, okay, I want to invest in this industry, but is it legit? Is it something that is going to bring me a return at some point? We want also, in a way, to help them do the due diligence. So that's the next generation of VC will be the Sequoia. And that's going to be a lot more money. So we also need to evolve from an ecosystem to an industry. So number-wise, I cannot answer your question, unfortunately, but on the profiles of VCs, I think that we are going to see also an evolution very soon.
Okay, I got you a bit cold-handed. So just like the general outlook, do you think like within, let's see, the next year, when we meet again here in a year, what do you hope will have improved, just like in like one or two sentences? What's like you think we should be working on for the next year? What's the focus?
Adoption-wise, I would say it would be great to have 100 communities like those all over the world using open source wallets and providing basically open source banking to millions.
Right, so what would your answer be?
I'd like to see 10x the amount of people, 10x the amount of projects. I don't think that's a pretty far off thing or too crazy, but yeah, 10x.
I want to see a robust, solid infrastructure. I want to see more solution being built on non-custodial infrastructure. I want to see additions to the Lightning implementations like async payments and stuff that are missing in order to build non-custodial solutions. I want to see products that are around peer-to-peer economy, cutting intermediaries, cutting third parties. I want to see the revolution that Bitcoin can bring to the world embedded in the Lightning ecosystem.
Okay, thanks. Now, traditionally, this would be the end of the panel because that's like a very good closing remarks. I have two more things. The one thing is we talked about like kind of hands-on stuff. We're going to have a general assembly at 12:50 here, and I assume not everybody knows what this is going to be about. We're going to meet here to talk about the workshops that are offered a bit, to give you a general overview, but also give everyone the opportunity to come on stage and quickly present ideas they have the chance to work on this afternoon or tomorrow. We do have some open spaces downstairs, so if you have anything, if you have a specific topic you're missing, you want to discuss something, you want to work on something, you want to show something, your prototype to your peers, it's best to be here at 12:50 and we can sort it out. Everybody gets like a minute to talk about their idea and you can try to pitch it in a way and have an sort of unconference style afternoon today and also a day tomorrow. So come back here at 12:50. And the other thing is that I'm quite excited. I mentioned earlier we have been doing events for a couple of years now, we as FOLMO, and we're going to do a Lightning conference again in Berlin in April 21st and 22nd next year. So this is sort of the save the date announcement, put it in your calendars. I know some of you were there and I'm really excited to be coming back to Berlin. We will be focusing on the technological challenges on development for the Lightning Network, but basically everything we covered in this panel as well. So if you're excited about the Lightning Network and you want to be part of the future of the Lightning Network, enjoy the conference. We're just getting started, but also mark down the date, April 21st, 2023, Berlin. And thank you guys for being here. Have a great conference.
Jeff?
Thank you.
Big round of applause, please. Yeah, very good. Okay, so we have a bunch of shadowy supercoders here, and a lot of people really like their privacy also. So I don't know, we have like these blue and these red bands. I think everybody understands that if you have a red band on, people don't like to take pictures of these kind of folks. Yeah, more or less. Okay, we have a next talk up.